Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Today we're covering a newly released feature-length animated fantasy film, The Spine of Night. This was directed by Morgan Galen King and Philip Gillott, co-written by both as well, and follows the story of a mysterious source of cosmic power known as the Bloom. It basically looks like a glowing blue flower of sorts, which grants various people throughout the film incredible abilities for good or ill. Mostly ill, as we'll see. It's a very, very nasty fate for a lot of these characters. Being narrated by a swamp witch named Sod, played by Lucy Lawless, to the Bloom's dying guardian, who lives inside a dead god's skull at the top of the world's largest mountain, which is where the planet found its source. Yeah, that's exactly as metal as it sounds. So, a little background. Morgan Galen King started working on this fantasy world of his back in 2010 and released a pair of short rotoscoped animations through his indie studio Gorgonaut, featuring a barbarian warrior known as Mongrel, before following it up with some more developed film Exordium in 2013, which serves a bit of a prequel to some of the events in The Spine of Night. He then teamed up with a writer and director, Philip Gillott, who you may know as writer on Netflix's Love, Death, and Robots, along with a cast including the aforementioned Lucy Lawless, Richard E. Grant, Joe Manganiello, Patton Oswalt, Betty Gabriel, among others, to create a full-length follow-up. Now, the film premiered at South by Southwest in March of this year, March 18th if I'm not mistaken, and as of October 29th, it's out in a limited theatrical release and through various streaming services. So, yeah. This movie has been a long time in the making, and luckily, it kicks ass. I mean, this is a deliberate throwback to that old-school, adult-oriented fantasy animation of the 70s and 80s. We're talking Ralph Bakshi's movies like Wizards and, Fire and Ice, of course, of which I'm a fan, as you can say. Heavy Metal, also a fan. The animated Lord of the Rings movies, those kinds of things. So, The Spine of Night itself, it feels like a cross between Fire and Ice and Heavy Metal, at least in terms of the subject matter and the general structure. It's got that episodic anthology aspect to it, but it still features recurring characters throughout as it follows the path of the Bloom through this sword and sorcery world and the utter havoc it wreaks on humanity on the way. And whoo boy, is there ever havoc. This movie is violent and bloody as hell, and we are talking decapitations, we are talking dismemberment, incinerations, the works. I mean, and on top of that, there's a whole lot of nudity as well. I mean, Lucy Lawless's character, Sod, pretty much totally naked throughout the whole film. Not in a horny way, though. But I will say there's not really any of the sexier elements that were found in those 70s and 80s animated films, like Tigra here, for instance. No, none of that, sorry. Plenty of tits and dicks, not a lot of titillation is all I'm saying. So if you're going into this movie looking for that, you're probably going to be a bit disappointed. What The Spine of Night does provide, however, is a return to rotoscoped animation, which is to say frame-by-frame animation, hand-drawn over live-action footage to give the result a very realistic and fluid motion kind of thing. Now, I'll admit that at first I found the animation style for the characters to jar a bit with the more painted backgrounds they moved in, unlike, say, A Scanner Darkly by Richard Linklater, where I feel the two elements were more blended in the sense that the animation that was on the characters was also done specifically to the backgrounds as well, so it kind of flowed a bit better in that regard. However, that quickly passed as the movie went on, in large part, I think, to some really good performances that take the material seriously and don't indulge in the kind of ironic winking at the audience you see in too many genre movies that can really take you out of them if you're trying to really, immerse yourself in that, and then when the character starts making some kind of joke at the expense of the situation, the whole thing just falls flat. Yeah, there's none of that in this, thank goodness. And there are some really incredible and trippy visuals in this that really deserve you to get immersed in. I think some standouts for me. There was a flashback to the Bloom's origins told by the Guardian, who done entirely in like black silhouettes with, colored highlights. That really looks incredibly good. There's a sequence of winged assassins boarding an airship about past the midway point of the film, around 2/3 mark, and that one's really impressive. And of course, there's the whole ending of the film, which, if you're like me and a Harryhausen fan, you're going to get a kick out of this, and I'll just leave it at that. No further spoilers for any of that. It's definitely worth seeing. Plus, in general, when someone really cuts loose with the Bloom's powers, things get both awesome and horrific real quick. Like, that power just turns people to plasticine. It is impressive. Again, this is not one for the kids. If you're going to this expecting something you can sit baby in front of, like that Coco Malone shit, no. Do not make that mistake. This is animation. It is not for children. Again, violence, gore, nudity, adult, themes about the price of power, the corruptibility of man, and the confusion of the search for knowledge for the thirst for power is, throughout this whole thing. So this is for grown-ups. So yeah, The Spine of Night is a deliberate throwback to that period of 80s sword and sorcery and animated fantasy movies, and I highly recommend anyone who's a fan of those to watch this one. I can guarantee you aren't likely to see anything else like this out now, that's for sure. It's imaginative, it's packed with great visuals, it's gory. Lucy Lawless plays a naked swamp witch. I mean, what more do you really want? Honestly. Come on. As I said, it's out now in select theaters and on demand. Details can be found on the Gorgonaut website. The links will be below. And yes, I highly recommend checking out The Spine of Night. In terms of animated films out now in 2021, you're not going to see anything else like it. I've been Zero Sum, and thank you for watching. Like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. I'll see you all next time.